Alrighty, Redcoat here of Vernacular Games. I just wanted to comment on a particular thing. So, as you know, Nintendo has a whole bunch of different IPs and things that they're always looking for the next step with. And, some of their IPs go into dormancy for a long period of time. Metroid is one of them, that there was a long period where there were no new games in the space, and that comes from their philosophy of, well, if we can't really do anything new with it, then we're going to let it sit. We're going to let it simmer. And you can even see that with the sequel to Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, where in that one, they did a lot of crazy new stuff with the Zelda formula. And I mean, even Breath of the Wild coming after I'm trying to think, what was the one right before that? I don't think it was Twilight Princess that came out after that. There was another one before that one, right? Well, either case, there was a long period before Breath of the Wild came out. And again, it changed the way that The Legend of Zelda worked. So why am I pointing this out? Well, there is a franchise IP that has gone into dormancy that I think many people recognize the character from, even though they don't realize that he is connected to that particular franchise. The character is Captain Falcon. The franchise is F-Zero. So, the thing is, in an interview with the lead designer behind F-Zero AX and GX, at least that is my understanding, that was who it was that was commenting, what he said about why that franchise has gone into dormancy is that he didn't know what the next step for it was. What was the thing that was going to reframe what F-Zero was? Because that's what usually defines a new entry into a generation of a franchise for Nintendo. It's always something that reframes what the game is. And I say reframe because this is in line with my philosophy of game design, which is that games are composite experience, and the mechanical side has the core design, the framing design, and the refining designs. And so where you have the core design, which is the thing that you're going to be doing all the time in the game, and the general concept of how it works. For instance, Mario is an obstacle course game at its core, and the thing that you're doing is moving and jumping, hence it being a platformer. And, when you got to Mario 64, because it was a much more complex thing, it branched out of the obstacle course format while still utilizing the same base concept of move and jump. It's just now that you're in a 3D realm, now you have this exploration element that frames the core concept of move and jump. And it goes from being an obstacle course game to more of a playground game. I'm not going to say sandbox game, because a sandbox game is just go, have that. That's Breath of the Wild. No, because Mario 64 still had the courses. It's a playground game. You enter into individual playgrounds, do some task, go out of there. Anyway, the point of this is, in my estimation, the next step for F-Zero can be described, well, it can't be described in an incomplex way, but you need to have your elevator pitch. So, my statement is, why are you still racing on the ground? You can race in the air. Now, let's temper that, because this isn't just a statement of let's make those cars fly. No, because that's Aero Gauge, and that's Diddy Kong Racing. Diddy Kong Racing's flying sections, to be specific. But Aero Gauge specifically had it where you can fly and you can drive, and that did some stuff. I don't think it did enough to really revamp the thing. No. What I'm talking about is the fact that F-Zero AX and GX, the thing that it did, really, it allowed the F-Zero that was in F-Zero X, it gained the graphical fidelity to support the 3D courses that were created in F-Zero X. That's what F-Zero AX and GX brought to the fore. It was less of a reframing thing and more of a, holy crap, we can do this now sort of thing. It's the fastest F-Zero that was ever released, and the courses were no longer hemmed in by graphical issues. And so now you could have a course that was entirely a tube. You could have a course where you're inverted and then you're flipping around and doing all of this crazy stuff. And so while it didn't necessarily completely reframe it, it did fully enhance it. And in a sense, for the fact that it was brought that far forward in the terms of, let's say, functionality and graphical fidelity, that was enough of a shift to make it feel like a reframing. Whereas if you went back and played F-Zero X, yes, it's a similar game. There's the DNA in there, but F-Zero GX and AX still feels like a huge step forward. And, of course, they also had the story mode, which, that was cool. I might have 100%ed the game, so that doesn't sound like much of an endeavor until you actually look at how many things you have to unlock in it. Anyway, I digress. The next step for F-Zero is twofold. Now, what I said was, why are you still racing on the ground? And what I mean by this is, with the way that we can do things in 3D now, instead of just being able to stay on the road like this, and you just follow the road around as it goes, why not be able to go like this? Jump from road to road. Now, I want you to think about that for a few seconds. This opens up a huge amount of design space for what you can do with tracks. Just the ability to have the two tracks like this. And there is a track like this in F-Zero GX, where on one lap you're going this way, and on the other lap you're going this way. But what if you had that same track? Well, slightly different, let's say. And you can pop between these two spaces and go zoop, 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 zoop. And now let's take it a step further, where you've actually got gaps. And now you have something up above like this and something farther below, just below like that. And so you have to go zoop, zoop. There's some timing and risk and all kinds of cool stuff that you can do just with that concept of being able to anti-grav off the road and re-grav on. I mean, you'd have to have a better term for it. And I think whatever the term is for that functionality, that would be the surname for the F-Zero game. I'm not sure what term what you would call it, but it would have something to do with gravity. And no, we're not going to call it F-Zero Zero gravity. That maybe F-Zero gravity. That sounds fun. Hey, go. Come on. You're making trouble. Come on. Down. Cats. Anyway, with all of that said, that one change is enough to reframe the concept of racing in F-Zero, and to make it not only unique within the F-Zero franchise, but unique within the general space of racing games, not just now, but also in the genre that it fits in, which is, of course, sci-fi racing. The only other game that I know of that really does something like this, and I highly recommend you check it out, is Distance, the survival racing game. And generally speaking, that's more of a time trial style game, so you've still got a nice niche here. Put your 50 racers on there and have them all flipping and dipping around each other. Or flip, boost, get to the next spot. Flip, boost, flip. I mean, it just sounds like fun, right? Anyway, there's one other thing that I would want to do. However, this is less mechanically focused, and this is more having the narrative expressed with the mechanics. Now, you already have something that you need to really get right, which is the flipping stuff and the whole balance around that. And that might be all that you need to really make the game just sing. But the next step that I would take here is let the thematic and aesthetic feeling of the game start to inform a bit more about how it races. You see, F-Zero, as per Captain Falcon, who we've seen in Smash Brothers, and him going, "Pwah! Falcon Punch!" is about superheroes that race each other. Superheroes and supervillains, and everything in between. Thing is, I mean, we only really know the cars, because I mean they're the most iconic part of it. And then you look at the racers and they're really weird, but you know it's kind of like you see them here and there. But it's kind of a. I'm not going to say that there's entirely a disconnect there, but there's more that you can do to actually express that element of the game's identity. Hence, taking a note from Extreme G. And I think there's a couple of other futuristic racers that do this, but Extreme G is specifically the one that I'm going to be noting here. Now, what does Extreme G do? Well, it's the same kind of 3D racing, although not to the same degree as F-Zero GX because it was an N64 game. But they also have weapons. You have missiles, you have machine guns, you have all of that stuff. Now, this isn't Mario Kart. Now, we have to be clear about that. Where in Mario Kart, the main reason that you attack somebody is to specifically pop them up, stop their momentum so that you can pass them. A 1-2 interaction. Very quick, very simple, and it's also very, very disruptive. The implementation of weapons in Extreme G wasn't necessarily immediately disruptive, I should say. Rather, as you took damage, this would impact your vehicle's overall stats, where the more damage you took, the less of a top speed you would have, or the less acceleration you would have, or your handling would start to worsen. And so, depending on how well you were able to defend yourself, you'd be able to maintain tip-top performance throughout the race. Now, for F-Zero, one of the things is we don't necessarily have to do that specific form of incrementality. Rather, what we can do instead is have the resource that is already in existence, the one that you use to race really good, your boost, which is also your shields, have that be something that can actually be damaged. Have that be something that can be attacked. And we take it a step further. Because we have all of these characters with these different ideas, different concepts of who and what they are. You can make weapons for each individual character. And I mean, if you really want to go crazy, although I would, say, here be dragons, be careful. If you really want to be crazy and do something completely off the wall, you give the characters not only some weapons, and I mean, you can play around with whether or not you want that to be a custom, like I'm going to put these weapons onto this guy, or if you want it to be, every character specifically has this, and this, and so racers are tiered based on their combat effectiveness as well as their ability to actually, run the course. But you could go a step further and utilize one concept that I thought was really fascinating, that it showed up in F-Zero GX and AX, but you really only see it at one point. Every character has their own theme song. So when do you play Ode to You, your anthem? When you are doing the hotness, when you are doing the thing that's going to turn this whole thing around. So, like I said, here be demons, here be dragons. There's a lot of balance work that you'd need to do to make this actually function properly. But the concept of your character activating some once a race thing, or perhaps it's a after you've done X, Y, and Z, you get this. Something that turns on their theme music, and it's go time for you. And it's time for you to be the sci-fi racing superhero that you were always meant to be. It's time for Captain Falcon to get out on top of his machine and Falcon punch the enemies right nearby him. Maybe not quite that. But you get the concept, right? And think about all of those weird characters that are in that game. There's a plethora of weird and crazy things that you could have them do. And this creates a vast angle of engagement of just, well, what does this character do? How does he work? How does this character work? Well, when I'm racing on this track, I've got this specific ability that makes me able to do this. And so I can do that and this and crazy stuff. And, that's... I think that if you're gonna take F-Zero into the next generation, that's where you go. 3 things. The flip from point to point. The thing that is probably going to be on the tin of this version. We call it F-Zero Gravity. It's funny, I only came up with that now. And then the combat, which I say is a take it or leave it thing, but with the nature of all of the characters that are in this, if you really want them to come out and be true mascots, where people remember who they are beyond the shape of their cars, let them fight each other. Let them fight each other. Let them put some weapons onto those machines, and make it so that you have you have a number of more reasons than you used to pay attention to your shields. And, I mean, maybe even put some defensive tools on some of these machines. I mean, some of these guys are more hefty than others, so, you know, there's a lot you can do. And finally, for that extra little bit of custard on top, let the characters do go time. Let them play their theme song and start kicking some major butt. That's the idea that I think is the next step for F-Zero. And yeah, that's my thought, really. I have long been a fan of the sci-fi racer, the out there, over-the-top, crazy racer. I think we've kind of lost that in our current era. I want that back. I want that back. You might even say I kind of need it back. But that's my thought on what you would do, what you do to reframe F-Zero for the next generation. And as it so happens, with the Switch 2 coming out, or rather, on the way, you have a next generation to reframe it for. Food for thought. Anyway, that was what I was thinking about today. Oh! This has been Redcoat of Vernacular Games. We're, doing a couple of things right now. We got a board game that is in the works. I'm finalizing the prototypes for playtest bits so that I can actually take it out to places and, try it out with some people. I just got a few more things to do, and with any luck, we'll be able to, show it out there. But I've been doing that for a client. His name's Brian Garrett, and the game is called Record Biz. I should have the link to the mailing list under this channel, so just go ahead and click on that and go over there if you want to hear more about the game as it gets closer to release. Our current plan is to try and build up a little bit of a list, and once we have enough to confidently get started, do a Kickstarter for that piece. But that is one thing. We have a number of other games in the works currently, one of which is a micro game. We have one micro game, but we actually have roughly 7 of them waiting in line. Just this is the one that's in work. I'm not going to say too much about it until I have a little bit more so that I can actually show you, but it is related to our mid-level game that is currently in development. And once I have a little bit more for that one, I'll also tell you a bit about that. But along with that, beyond that, there are a couple of comic projects that we've been working on, and, well, it looks like they've been pushed back a little bit just because of presentation issues. Well, not presentation issues, but more just wanting to wow a crowd with them. But if all goes well, I should actually have a hard copy of a portion of issue 0 very soon. And so that'll be exciting to show you. But that was some work that we were helping out a client with, and so we'll see what the client has to say, if they want to unveil it or not. But I digress. Other than that, you can find more videos of me just chatting at you on the YouTubes, the Rumbles, and the BitChutes. And we have an Instagram, a Facebook, and, we have a TikTok, although it's not very active. And, play the games you want to play, boyos. This is Redco, signing off. The songs featured in this particular performance are overclock remixes of F-Zero themes, save for the one. That one is from Extreme G. Now I'm wondering if you can figure out which one that is. I think it might be pretty obvious.